So this article is by Suzanne Blake. Here we go. John, a 62-year-old father living in Northwest Ohio, is one of the millions of parents that took on a Parent Plus loan in hopes of giving his daughter a better life. Now unemployed, he says he'll likely be paying them off well into his 80s. So John is 62, and he's looking at about a 25-year payment plan. Borrowers who took on Parent Plus loans remain one of the student debt holders with the highest interest rates, but they've been largely left out of any student debt forgiveness plans under Biden's administration. John, who preferred to be only known by his first name, told Newsweek that he lost his job as an electrical estimator and test technician and now fears the debt will hang over his head well into his 80s. John was initially convinced to take on the loan in his name after a community college counselor told him and his daughter she should attend a state school based on her academic achievements. All right, so let's go ahead and pause. Parent Plus loans, I believe, are incredibly predatory. I believe that the only more predatory loan than a Parent Plus loan are payday loans. Now, I've done stories on payday loans, and I will attach one of them at the end of this video. Hopefully I remember, all right? Also, along with this video of John being 62 with Parent Plus loans going into his 80s, on Friday this week, so just about 3 days ago, I did a video on people in their 80s and 90s with student loan debt. I will attach that also at the end. It is my belief that when you are in your later years, anything past 50, you should not be taking on debt. You should be getting rid of debt. Yet time and time we see people well into their 50s, 60s taking on debt. It is fine to take on the debt if you have the money to pay off the debt. In other words, you have enough stocks, bonds. Maybe you live in a big enough house that you don't even mind downsizing and you could pay off the debt. But that's not who we're addressing. We're addressing people who are struggling like John is, who are struggling like the 80 and 90-year-old people I talked about on Friday that I will link at the end. Those are the people we are talking about, the financially vulnerable in the population. They are, in essence, your grandparents and your great-grandparents with student loan debt. And it says here, he took on the Parent Plus loan, and it says that they've been left out of student debt forgiveness under Biden's administration. And of course, we know this was a year ago, okay? At this point, pretty much anything the Biden administration has done, with promising you your 10, 20,000, promising your student loan debt, as we all know the current results, okay? It didn't go well. I'm blessed with a brilliant daughter, John told Newsweek. She graduated in the top 10 students in her class. Once looking at their college options, John took on the payment so that his daughter could live on campus and pay for tuition and textbooks. They saw her transcript and said, "You've got a 4.0 GPA student and you're not going to the state university for a bachelor's degree?" So she hooked us up with the admissions at the state university, John said. She finished in 4 years with a 3.97 GPA and good to go. John ended up with 4 separate Federal Plus loans with a beginning balance of just under $37,000. So his 4 loans total $37,000. At the time, John said he had a credit score in the top tier and could have qualified for a 3% private bank loan instead of the 7.99% rate he faces now. So, in other words, the bank loan in this case would have been a better deal for him than going with the federal Parent Plus loan. Let me tell you something. Parent Plus loans, all right, don't have the same protections and benefits as regular student loans. And I genuinely believe that Parent Plus loans, to me, what makes them so predatory is a lot of parents are not aware, okay, that when you take out Parent Plus loans, nobody's checking to see if you can pay off the bill. Hey, does this sound familiar? Just like when college students, the 18, 19, 20-year-olds take out their loans, nobody's checking to see if they can pay the bill. A parent can take out as much Parent Plus loan as they want, up to the limit of, I believe, the annual cost of that college. Nobody is looking at the numbers to see if you can pay that bill off. Oh, and I should also say, in this case here, okay, so he's looking at, let's just round it off. He's looking at an 8% interest rate. because he went with the federal government. This is the other thing. Most of the time, and I would say this almost always, okay, the student taking out the loan, the one going to school, stay with federal loans. I personally don't believe in private loans. I just don't think you should do private loans. They're horrible, okay? They're predatory also. Federal loans, with the exception of Parent Plus. In the case of Parent Plus, I think for a lot of parents, it might actually be easier to go with the bank loan because of the significantly lower interest rate. But there is a caveat. It doesn't happen a lot, but there are opportunities for parents to have a parent, public service loan forgiveness. But for Parent Plus, it's hard and it's difficult to get. And I would not count on it. So if I were making the decision, he should have gone with the bank loan for like 4% versus the government loan at 8%. And don't forget, when you take out a Parent Plus loan, that interest starts immediately. There's no deferment or anything like that. Okay, there's no, subsidized and unsubsidized? There's no subsidized loan where the government picks up the interest while you're in school. That does not exist. That picture has nothing to do with this article. The plan was to get the debt paid off in 25 years. Oh, 25 years. I want you to stop and think about this, okay? That is more years than it takes to raise your child. It takes you 18 years to raise a child to legal age. Yet it takes you 25 years to pay off educating them for 4 years in a college, so to speak. Some people take 5 years. John had paid $20,000 of the debt until he became ill with a life-threatening illness a few years before the pandemic. That's when he paused his payments for a year due to medical expenses. During the pandemic, federal borrowers saw all payments pause, but now John is facing down $40,500 still owed, despite already making $20,000 in payments for the initial $37,000 loan. During the pandemic, John also lost his job and his financial situation quickly derailed. All right, let's take a look at this step by step, okay? So his initial bill was for, I think it was 40,000. I think he said 39,000, but we're just gonna round it off to 40,000. Yeah, the initial balance was 37,000. Let's just round it off to 40,000. Sorry about moving the screen. I'm aware it makes people dizzy, so I try not to move it. Okay. All right. So he's paid $20,000 towards that bill, but the bill's gone up. And why has the bill gone up? 1, 2, 3, because he wasn't even making the minimum that you need to get. What is it? You need to pay the interest, much less get into the principal. Okay. So that's why his bill has gone up. $20,000. And again, people, I've said it. Okay. We don't do this with cars. We don't do this with houses. Okay. If you make every single payment on your car and you schedule it for 5 years, it will be done. But if you call in, you say, oh, you know what? I can't, that's too much for 5 years. I can't afford that. I'd like you to take this $800 car payment, knock it down to $300. They're going to look at you and say, no, we're just going to go ahead and take the car. With student loans, it's a different thing, because student loans, there's nothing for them to take. And there's a huge advantage also because it's backed by the government. All right. So they know that, hey, you know what? We'll have you pay less than the interest, because it doesn't matter what your bill is. The government's going to guarantee the loan. The government's going to make sure that the bank and or school doesn't lose any money. All right. So I just want you to think about 25 years. And he's made $20,000 in payments on this $37,000 loan. We really need to get under control the interest. It's the interest that's the problem. It is. It's the interest. But yet, let's get technical. The interest on a student loan, if you really get down to it, is no better or worse than any other interest. The only reason I believe, okay, well, there are technicals, like I just explained. Part of the technical reasons that student loan interest seems so horrible compared to the rest of it is because we are allowed to pay less than what it takes to actually pay the loan off in 10 years. If we find that $2,000 a month payment is just too high, or that $1,100, $900, whatever the payment is, they'll knock it way, way down, so ridiculously down that now we can never pay the loan off. So we sit there, we go, oh man, the student loan is worse. It's actually not worse than any other loan. The laws just allow it to be played differently. So it seems worse. But if you actually call your student loan provider and you say, hey, I want to pay this loan off in 10 years, they'll give you the number. And if you're sitting there going, oh my God, I can't pay that. Well, the time, and I take responsibility on this also, the time we should have looked at that was before we took the loan out. That's when we should have looked at it, instead of just going on a wing and a prayer. And I'm guilty of that too. All right. So guilty as charged over here. My bangs are doing their own thing today. I got done working out, so they're just doing their own thing. Okay. It also says here that he lost his job and his financial situation quickly became derailed, and he's 62. All right. You've heard me say, young people, think before you take on voluntarily and say, oh, I'm going to pay on for 10, 15, 20 years. I want this school so much. I want this degree so much. I'll take whatever it takes to pay on it. And what do I say? I say to you, what else do you think is going to happen in your life over the next 10, 15, 20 years, where pretty soon that student loan, that's just that little pest, okay, that you want to get rid of, that you want to spray away, you can't. So what starts to happen? You ignore that and you bring other more important things to the forefront. A lot can happen in 10, 15, 20 years, clearly. So John here, and this is the situation with a lot of parents taking out Parent Plus loans. They're doing it because they love their children so much, but at the same time, a lot of parents sink themselves in the process. And as we know, parents do not have the same amount of time to make up time like their children have. I genuinely believe that when a parent hits that big 5-0, you should not be taking on debt. And there is nothing wrong, in my opinion, saying to your child, I'm sorry, mom and dad, we don't want you taking care of us in our old age. So we need to start planning our retirement. We cannot afford to co-sign Parent Plus loan or otherwise carry on additional college debt. Because if we did that, that could potentially put you as our child in a financial situation of having to care for us, and we absolutely will not allow that. See? That's kind of how it was explained to me. Not with quite that much detail, but close enough. My mother had no problem saying, this isn't happening. And we understood that from the get-go. Okay? And what's happened here? He's lost his job. Anybody plan on losing their job? And what's the other thing with the job? He's over the age of 50. Let's be honest. Let's have a real honest heart-to-heart moment. Okay? Think about how long this Parent Plus loan is that you want to take out. How old are you? Oh, so you're going to be in your 50s and 60s, and you think you're going to be with the 20, 30, and even 40-year-olds. Not likely. And you'd think that if you get laid off, you might not have to take a job cut, a pay cut. Very likely. These are things that I've always said it's easy to sign on the line when the eating is good. I'm fully employed. My health is great. My child is wonderful. Okay. And we all sign on the line. And then all of a sudden down the road, okay, my health ain't so great. The budget's getting tight. Child may or may not be struggling in school and may or may not be one of the 40% or so that drops out. Or we take on a degree, the child gets the degree, and then they major something else totally different. And how many Dave Ramsey articles have we listened to, family, that says, oh, yes, and they it's usually a she. I'm not being sexist. I'm saying it the way it is, okay? She graduates with a college degree, and then she becomes a stay-at-home mom, and meanwhile, that $50,000, $80,000 degree is sitting there collecting dust and interest, making the banks very happy. Okay, when you sign on, and I've always generally believed that you are more powerful not signing on to debt for your children. And to me, Parent Plus loans puts the parent in a weak position because now the parent is beholden to the laws and the rules of the bank, the federal government. It is more powerful, in my opinion, to keep my budget in control of me. In other words, I am the one keeping the budget. I am not going to give that budget to an organization to take care of for me. If my sisters, just hypothetically, okay, let's say my sister, for whatever desperate reason, needed to borrow $5,000. I'm just saying desperate reason. They need $5,000 for whatever reason, okay? If I co-sign a loan for $5,000, I've just given up my ability to control my own money. I've given up the ability to control late fees. I've given up the ability to control overdrafts. Okay, all of that stuff. And this to me is what happens when a parent takes on a Parent Plus loan and the parent does not have the financial means to pay the loan off. I am not talking about parents that can easily pay it off. And you got some of those parents out there. Well, we have enough in stock stocks and bonds, and we're just taking this Parent Plus loan because we want to teach our daughter responsibility. But the minute the daughter misses a payment, we're paying off that loan ka-ching. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about average Joe Blow America, who's probably making between $30, $50, $60, $70,000 a year, somebody like me, okay, taking on a debt where they give up control of their finances. And I think the problem with the Parent Plus loan is a lot of parents don't consider that there is no cap on how much you can take out. And it used to not be that way. Parent Plus loans in their early years, like I want to say somewhere in the 80s or so, okay? In their early years, don't quote me on that date, but I want to say it's somewhere around there. Parent Plus loans were really for what? Parents that could afford to pay off the debt. But then as everything goes, when the government says, let everybody do it, they decide to open up to the whole world. And now the guy who's making $15 an hour at Chuck E. Cheese and really wants to get his son or daughter through school goes on, takes out a Parent Plus loan at, $30,000 a year and can't pay off the bill. Okay? The Parent Plus loan money is not dished out based on whether or not the parent can pay. It's based on how much the annual cost of the school is. And parents, I beg you, do the math before you take out that loan, because Parent Plus loans, like I said, they sit right up there with payday loans. They are sneaky and they have so many financial pitfalls and bad interest rates. So he doesn't think about, his financial situation 10, 15, 20 years down the road. You just think about it when the eating is good. COVID destroyed life as we knew it, he said. Corporate was to remove 20% of the workforce, so I was dumped. That's his way of saying he was laid off. But yeah, I understand feeling dumped. After searching for a new job, John said he was only able to find one that paid 39% less than his previous salary. He also shouldered the burden of 2 deaths of immediate family members and high medical insurance premiums. All of a sudden, I'm in a financial bind, John said, adding things only got worse when he got another surprise layoff. So that's 2 layoffs in a row for this poor guy. And he's carrying all this, and he's carrying $40,000 in Parent Plus loans. As of today, John has sent 80 applications out, done 3 interviews, and still has no job. Now, remember, this was just about a year ago, okay? So I want you to imagine yourself taking out a Parent Plus loan you cannot afford, all right? And you get through 2 job layoffs, you have a medical illness, you send out 80 applications, and you have no job. You need to think about these things. Nobody wants to hire someone in their 60s anymore, he said. Since technical jobs aren't biting, I'm at the point where it's going to be $13 an hour at McDonald's or Wendy's. Here is a picture of John. There's his granddaughter. This is obviously on Newsweek magazine, so there it is for the public. I'm not giving you proprietary information. Okay, nobody wants to hire someone in their 60s anymore. Exactly. Which is why when people who are older and here's the thing, it doesn't matter when you really get down to it. It doesn't matter if it's Parent Plus loans or if it's just your student loan for yourself. It's just when it's a student loan for yourself, hopefully you can get PSLF, okay? But it still doesn't matter. Debt is debt. A student loan is a student loan if it has your name attached to it. You have to be thinking to yourself, how old am I going to be throughout the years as I carry these loans? Oh, gee, I'm going to be well into my 50s. Now I lose my job. I'm going to be competing against the 20, 30, and 40-year-olds. Yes, even 40. Okay, 40 is still pretty hardy for the corporate world. It's not until you seem to hit that really late 40s and a big 50, it all kind of seems to tank, all right? So he's working. He may have to work at Wendy's or McDonald's. And here's the sad part. He isn't kidding. So he'd be 62. By the way, put in the comments, do you guys notice that there are a lot of older people working fast food? Has anybody noticed this? Maybe we can put that in the comments, because I will tell you this. When I was growing up, all right, and I'm a child of the 80s. I was born in 1967, so my awareness years were the 80s, okay? It was all teenagers. Now it is like mom, dad, grandma. It's almost like if I see young people working, I'm almost like, oh, wow. Like I do go to Culver's right down the street from me. And that tends to be fairly young people. Okay. But I do notice a lot of restaurants, though, it's the older generation working. So he's not He's not being sarcastic or facetious when he says it's working at Wendy's or McDonald's, $13 an hour. Hope he doesn't have double knee arthritis like I have. Looking for a way out of his situation, John sent a letter to his loan servicer explaining the current hardship he's facing and hoping for some relief. Let's stop. Don't look ahead. Don't look ahead. What do you think the loan servicer said? What do you think the federal loan servicer said? Do you think they said, oh, John, you know what? We understand your daughter was in the top graduating class. We understand that you wanted the best for her. We understand that you've had deaths in the family. You have your own medical issues. You've had two job layoffs. Let us see how we can help you. Do you think that's what the loan servicer said? Oh, of course not. Quote, they did call me back and say, quote, too bad for you. That's not hardship. Now, they probably didn't say it quite like that, but you can bet that is what they meant to say. John said, adding they wanted him to make an extended payment plan that will have him paying until he's 85 years old. And let us not forget, family, it will also give the bank more money. Extend those payments out. John said he has serious regret. Oh my goodness, I need some juice. Everybody hold on. John said he has serious regret that he didn't finance the college loans with a regular bank, remembering that a bank vice president once told him not to in case the government could give him help down the road. I'm really not going to fault the bank vice president because in some ways, you know, the bank vice president had his best interest in mind. The bank vice president, VP, was basically saying, look, if you take out a loan with us and there's any opportunity for you to get forgiveness, you're never going to get it. This was almost a no-win situation in some ways that John was facing. Do you go with the bank that's half the interest rate, but you're never going to get forgiveness? Or do you go with the federal government that's twice the interest, but will give you the forgiveness? I'll be honest. I would go with the bank because ultimately I think forgiveness is so difficult under Parent Plus that I would do everything I could to just pay the 4% interest off as fast as possible. So knowing what I know today, I would go with the bank. So I really can't fault John or even the bank VP for the decisions that they made. It was really a no-win situation for John. You know, there's no way to predict the future. And I believe the bank VP really did have his best interest in mind. Despite the fact that President Joe Biden and the Department of Education have offered loan forgiveness plans for several groups facing hardship, Parent Plus borrowers have been left out of the relief. And they will continue to be left out of relief for the most part. Again, they do get it. It's just very difficult. And I don't know the ins and outs of it. All right. Let's see here. According to Student Loan Planner, those making $50,000 yearly with $100,000 in Parent Plus loans would have to pay $590 each month, whereas Safe Plan holders would only pay $143. Let us dissect this entire sentence and the fear that this sentence should give you. All right. First off, I make $63,000 as a teacher. Let's take away $13,000 of my annual income. And I only recently started making $63,000 like a year ago. Okay. It's not like I've been making $63,000 for the last 19 years because in 4 days on Friday, I finished my 19th year. So let's take away $13,000, drop me to $50,000 gross. All right. And then give me a $600 a month student loan bill. I'm sunk. I am financially sunk. Let's see. And it says Safe Plan holders will only pay $143. And we know the Safe Plan, guys, kiss the Safe Plan goodbye. It's not good. It ain't happening. If the Safe Plan were going to happen, it would have happened by now. Okay. I think we can kiss that goodbye. So, but I want you to see the scary part here. Okay. Either way, let's say the Safe Plan did work. Do you really think $143 a month payment is going to pay off your $100,000 student loan bill? No. So that $100,000 student loan bill, you're going to be calling into the Dave Ramsey show. I'm going to probably be the one doing the commentary, although I would appreciate if Mr. Ramsey would hire me. I think I'd be terrific on it, but that's just my personal opinion. Okay. You know that bill is not going to ever be paid off. You cannot pay $143 a month on a $100,000 bill. And let's take a look at the $590 each month. Guess what? That ain't going to pay it off either. You're talking $100,000. So what happens either way? Either of these rescue plans, the bill's just going to go up. Take away $13,000 a year of my income and give me $100,000 bill. And if you think about it, okay, I kind of lived under that until it was forgiven in 2022. I was holding on to $110,000. So I know what that's like. Let's see. We're going to skip that part. Okay, let's see. How are they going to extract the money from me? John said. I start Social Security next year. So he starts it this year in 2025 because this article is 1 year old. Are they going to forcibly take my Social Security payments for 20 years to satisfy the Parent Plus loans? Yes, they are, John. They're going to do it, and they're going to start it with wage garnishment because the only person that can get a blood out of the turnip is the federal government. And of course, that includes IRS, which is part of the federal government. So yes, they will garnish your Social Security. They will garnish your disability. They will keep any tax returns they have. Yes, they will get it. Oh, don't forget, at the end, I'm going to link for us the article I did on Friday about the 80 and 90-year-olds that are dealing with wage garnishment, that are dealing with loan delinquency and all of that stuff. I'm going to be attaching that at the end, along with the TikTok I did earlier today. Double upload Monday. Okay, moving on. According to the Social Security Administration, benefits can be garnished for federal loans in default. We know that, right? We already know that. Up to 15% can be withheld even as retirees depend on the income for their daily living expenses. Remember, this is why I do not believe after the age of 50 you should be taking on any more debt. No financial commitments if it is not to your retirement account or to paying off your house, car, whatever. It is, in my opinion, the time for parents to be greedy. You've been given to the kids all your life. Time for you to be greedy. All right. Moving on. Oh, like other attempts at loan forgiveness, Biden cannot unilaterally forgive Parent Plus loans, which is true. And let's get something clear about PSLF. Okay, let's clear the air on here so we don't go running for the hills or running to TikTok and believing people who aren't saying the truth. Okay, yeah, and you can look up what I'm saying. All right. PSLF was formed in approximately 2007 under Obama. It was co-signed by both Republicans and Democrats, which is excellent. Public service loan forgiveness cannot just be wiped out by any administration. That includes the Biden, the Trump, and the next administration. The only way PSLF specifically can be wiped out, it would have to be an act of Congress. And here is the thing, and I would bet a check on it. No, not just a Pepsi at Thornton's. I would bet a check on it. It's not going to affect the people already in the PSLF program. It would affect future borrowers. So in other words, if you were to wake up one day and the headline is PSLF no longer exists, I guarantee it to you, it's not going to be towards the people that are already in it. Because also just mathematically, it'd be near impossible to figure out. And there would be lawsuits up the wazoo. But let's just do logic. Okay, it would be a congressional change that would affect future generations. So let's put the fear aside that PSLF, you're going to wake up one day and it's just gone. Yeah, they could take it away. But it's going to be an act of Congress, and it's going to affect the people coming up in the future. So let's keep that in check here, okay? All right. Looking back at the situation, John advises others to let their kids go to community college and to avoid a Parent Plus loan at all costs. Because remember, he sent his child to in-state four-year school and she lived on campus. Had she gone to a community college, been a quarter of that debt, and she could have stayed at home. Quote, I have had every intention of paying my Parent Plus loans, but then life happens. Multiple losses happen, and I see no relief for Parent Plus loan holders, he said. John said if he does end up with his Social Security money taken away in retirement, and I'm going to interject that it will be taken, okay? He's unsure what the future will look like. Then I will have nothing. All I wanted to do is help get my brilliant daughter a degree so she will be better off than me, he added. But in closing, we have to remember, folks, we have to do the math first to find out if she's going to be better off than you. And better off than you doesn't mean you sink yourself so, she rises to the top as the cream, okay? It's not you sinking yourself to get her ahead. And here's the reality of it. If he's simply relying on his Social Security, and it sounds like that probably is, he could become a financial burden in the future to his daughter. Because now, if he's really short on income, where's he going to live? See, this is why I strongly believe that parents should say, no, I will not take on any future debt that I cannot afford to pay off. And Parent Plus loans, in my opinion, they're so emotionally driven. Okay, you emotionally want to help your child. And so you don't think about the math and you don't do the math in advance. And I am just as guilty. Let the record show. Okay, I am just as guilty. I got my master's degree emotionally based. I didn't have to get that master's degree. to get the master's teacher pay. I already had one master's degree. I could have just paid off that $40,000 and called it done. But no, I had to do it the hard way. But that's good because that's what created this consumer debt channel.